One enduring aspect of the Ultramarines Legion that persisted through the second founding was their strong connection with the populations of nearby planets. During the Great Crusade, the worlds around Macragge provided young recruits, raw materials, armaments and spacecraft for the Ultramarines. Despite the reorganization during the second founding, which almost eliminated the need to recruit from these worlds, the tradition endured. To this day, the Ultramarines draw recruits from the entire region of local space known as Ultramar, their stellar empire. Ultramar is unique among the Space Marines' domains. While other chapters rule a single planet, asteroid, or even a mobile space fleet or orbital fortress, the Ultramarines govern a larger domain. Before the Horus Heresy, Ultramar encompassed more than 500 worlds, commonly referred to as the 500 Worlds of Ultramar, or the somewhat heretical New Empire. These worlds were divided into fiefdoms, with the largest being the Ultramarines' homeworld of Macragge. Other significant fiefdoms included Saramanth, Conor, Occluda, and Iax. Prior to the Word-Bearers' surprise assault on Calth during the Heresy, there was talk of Calth gaining its own fiefdom due to its significant industrial output, which nearly rivaled that of Macragge. The fiefdoms of Ultramar were governed by a tetrarch, an Ultramarines captain or chapter master appointed by Roboute Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines. The tetrarch would then choose a military governor, an emperor's champion, and his honor guard. Following the Horus Heresy and the subsequent division of the Space Marine legions into smaller chapters of 1,000 Marines, the 500 Worlds of Ultramar were divided and allocated to various successor chapters of the Ultramarines. The Ultramarines chapter retained control over the original core of Ultramar, consisting of 13 local star systems, each with its own loyal worlds and governments. These worlds share a common cultural heritage with Macragge, resulting in similar styles of architecture, governance, and societal traditions. Post-heresy, Ultramar benefited from Roboute Guilliman's reforms, making its citizens disciplined, productive, and loyal. As a result, Ultramar is a wealthy stellar empire within the Imperium, knowing little unrest or rebellion, a unique distinction in the late 41st millennium. The population of Ultramar lives in sprawling cities surrounded by extensive farmlands and seas teeming with fish. Each world is self-sufficient in raw materials and food, with active trade between planets, each offering its own specialties and delicacies. Despite being primarily industrial, Ultramar's worlds avoid the toxic wastelands common elsewhere in the galaxy. This balance makes Ultramar enviable to many system governors and planetary lords across the Imperium. Ultramar functions as the feudal realm of the Ultramarines within the greater Imperium of Man. Its worlds do not pay tithes to the Imperium, but instead contribute directly to the upkeep of the Ultramarines chapter. The rulers of Ultramar's worlds are feudal lords under the chapter master of the Ultramarines, who also holds the title of Lord of Ultramar with all associated rights and responsibilities. Like other worlds in the Imperium, each world in Ultramar raises regiments for its defense. Most worlds must provide regiments for the Astra Militarum, but Space Marine homeworlds are an exception. Ultramar's efficiency and prosperity allow it to maintain several hundred regiments ready to join the Astra Militarum when needed. Consequently, regiments from Ultramar have fought across the galaxy, often alongside the Ultramarines themselves. Each world also supplies Space Marine recruits for the chapter. Throughout Ultramar, citizens proudly point to public statues of famous Ultramarines born to local families. Among older aristocratic dynasties, it is a great honor to send recruits to the Ultramarines. Providing a renowned hero or chapter master brings considerable fame and status for generations. The capital of Ultramar is Macragge, a cold, rocky world with large, inhospitable polar regions. It is home to the fortress of Hera, the Ultramarines' fortress monastery. Ultramar is located in the galactic southeast of the eastern fringes near the galactic rim, close to the Eldari craft world, Iyanden, and the expanding Tau Empire. Twice, Ultramar has faced the threat of a Tyrannid hive fleet, and the Tyrannid presence in the eastern fringes remains strong. Macragge itself is mostly bleak and rocky, with more than three-quarters of its landmass composed of lifeless mountainous uplands. The people of Macragge do not inhabit these regions, But the Ultramarines' fortress monastery is built upon a craggy peak, surrounded by impenetrable mountains. Within this fortress, inside the vast Temple of Corrections, was the shrine of Primarch Reboot Guilliman, preserved in a stasis field for over 10,000 standard years until his resurrection during the 13th Black Crusade. Since returning to Ultramar during the Plague Wars, Guilliman has re-established the Tetrarchy and commanded the new Tetrarchs to begin restoring Ultramar to its original size of 500 worlds, believing that his decision to reduce the realm after the second founding had been a mistake. The original Ultramar subsector includes several notable worlds. Calth, Cavern World. Calth is an airless planet where inhabitants reside in underground cities to avoid the lethal light of its poisoned blue sun. These caverns are constructed on a grand scale, making them as light and airy as any city on Macragge. Initially a verdant world with surface dwellers, Calth was devastated by the Wordbearer's traitor legion during the early Horus heresy, while the Ultramarines were assembling for a joint campaign against the Orcs. The aftermath destabilized Calth's sun, forcing survivors to seek refuge underground. Calth is renowned for its orbital shipyards, which produce spacecraft for the Ultramarines and civil and military vessels for the Imperium. Although its people grow vast amounts of food in nutrient vats, they prefer to import most of their sustenance from Ix. Espandor, Frontier World Espandor, the most distant planet from Macragge, is a world of extensive forests with major cities located on its western continent. Settled by descendants of Macragge explorers, Espandor's people take pride in their rugged existence. Tradition holds that merchants blown off course during the Age of Strife were stranded here by warp storms. It is the least densely populated world in Ultramar. Ix, Garden World, known as the Garden of Ultramar, Ix boasts a fertile climate, making it one of the most naturally productive worlds in the Imperium. Its surface is covered with well-ordered farms and cultivated woodlands. Instead of large cities, Ix features many small towns connected by efficient hydroways. The ancient city of First Landing, with its enduring citadel, is the most urbanized area. Guilliman often visited and cherished Ix almost as much as Macragge. Unfortunately, Ix was devastated during the Plague Wars and suffered a virus bomb attack from Mortarion and the Death Guard. Kona Forge World, an Adeptus Mechanicus Forge World, Kona shares a culture with Ultramar but remains technically independent, owing allegiance to the Fabricator General of Mars. Despite this, Kona relies on the Ultramarines for defense, and its manufactoria products are primarily intended for the chapter. Parmenio. This world serves as a training ground for the Ultramarines, enhancing the tactical and strategic skills of the chapter's neophytes. Prandium, Dead World. Once teeming with life, Prandium was a prosperous colony established by Macragge settlers after the Horus heresy. Its mild climate and fertile environment made it the most beautiful jewel of Ultramar. However, it was destroyed by Hive Fleet Behemoth during the First Tyrannic War, leaving it a lifeless bedrock with its atmosphere blown into space. Talassa Prime, an Inquisition fortress world. Talassar, Ocean World. Talassar is a planet of stormy seas and rocky islands, with its single continent, Glaudor, being the site of a major battle between the Ultramarines and Orcs immediately after the Horus heresy. The Triple Worlds, Quintan, Tarentus and Masali, Agri-Worlds. These three small planets orbit a common center of gravity, much like Earth and its moon. They feature gigantic horticultural cities covering hundreds of square kilometers, capturing water in wind traps and storing it in massive underground tanks. The cities are enclosed by large domes, fostering forests and gardens as lush as any in Ultramar. From its inception, the 13th Legion adhered strictly to the Principia Bellicosa, a set of military doctrines established by the Emperor and his advisors at the dawn of the Great Crusade. The Legion's structure consisted of standardized companies, each with around 1,000 warriors, grouped into chapters of 10 companies each. Unlike many other legions, the 13th Legion did not attempt to alter or customize this structure. Instead, they honored and preserved these basic principles as a tradition, even after the rediscovery of their Primarch, Reboot Guilliman. Guilliman, recognizing the value in this structure, expanded and refined it rather than replacing it. Guilliman also built upon the 13th Legion's practice of observing and incorporating effective tactics from other legions. This analytical approach resonated with Guilliman's own meticulous nature, as he relentlessly studied and sought to improve upon successful strategies, always aiming to surpass the original with his intelligence and the diligence of his legion. The 13th Legion's operational doctrines emphasized tactical diversity and the use of overwhelming force. Reflecting this, the Legion maintained few specialized companies, instead distributing units with large stocks of non-standard equipment and munitions across various companies. This ensured that each Ultramarine's company could face any enemy on any terrain and emerge victorious, their combined power magnified when operating together. Each chapter contained a balanced mix of tactical and assault units, armor, artillery, gunships, and transports. As the Great Crusade progressed, the 13th Legion restructured into numerous individual Crusade expeditionary fleets, reinforcing the value of their doctrine. The Legion standardized much of its equipment and supplemented it with local patterns that were easier to mass-produce, meeting the expanding needs of its warriors. This adaptability would later influence the development of Space Marine forces beyond the Horus Heresy. While most of the Legion's chapters embraced this structured adaptability, some deviated due to long-held preferences or supply quirks. Notably, the 4th chapter, the Aurorans, operated 5 times as many armoured vehicles as a standard chapter, and the 22nd chapter, the Nemesis chapter, maintained large numbers of destroyer units and was often deployed for exterminatus operations. Rabut Guilliman had reservations about using such destructive weapons, considering them counterproductive to his doctrine of conquering or liberating worlds. However, unlike Vulcan, Guilliman did not ban their use, understanding that in some extreme cases, weapons like phosphex and oxygen destroyers were necessary. Some chapters retained elements of the old 13th Legion's substructures and heraldry, reflecting the achievements of the original Warborn, or the diverse origins of their warriors. Over time, as the Legion's demographic shifted towards the sons of Ultramar, these distinctions faded. By the late Great Crusade, all legionaries, regardless of origin, followed a unified organizational scheme with minor variations for personal heraldry and honors among the highest ranks. By the Horus Heresy, the 13th Legion comprised 25 chapters, a vast force of around 250,000 legionaries. This cohesive force could execute grand strategic assaults or operate flawlessly in smaller detachments thanks to their flexible organizational structure. The 13th Legion operated under a strict hierarchy where each warrior's responsibilities and duties were known at all times. Rabut Guilliman had overall command of the Legion, deciding its disposition and strategic objective, as well as taking command of whichever fleet or war zone he was present in. Beneath the Primarch were the chapter masters, each of whom led approximately 10,000 warriors and a contingent of Ultramar's Void Fleet. Assisting them were the cadre of senior officers and commanders, the Legatii. Each chapter of the Legion contained 10 companies each, in turn of 1,000 legiones Astartes commanded by a captain, who was responsible for the tactical deployment, efficiency and training of his warriors. While the captains and chapter masters of the 13th Legion governed the crusading armies of the Legion, it was the parallel system of trenches and their own legatii who governed the many military institutions of the realm of Ultramar and were entrusted with its defense. Each tetrarch was a military dictator of one of the 5 king worlds of Ultramar and ruled over a subsector of that realm. The tetrarchs were appointed by the Primarch, who was himself master of Macragge and the core worlds of Ultramar, though his duties as governor of these worlds often fell on his seneschal in practice, while he led the armies of the Emperor's Imperium on crusade. The Tetrarch Council includes Rabut Guilliman, Master of Macragge, Primarch of the 13th Legion, and Lord of the 500 Worlds, Ikos Lamiad, Tetrarch of Conor Toro Nicodemus, Tetrarch of Saramanth Eben Frayne, Tetrarch of Occludus Dolos Amintus, Tetrarch of Iax. Alongside the conventional order of battle with which the Ultramarines operated, several unique formations existed outside the traditional structure. Evocatii. The earliest of these non-standard formations were the Evocatii chapters, first introduced by Lord Commander Vosotho and later reorganized, expanded and renamed by Robert Guilliman. The Evocatii served as the training ground of the Legion, comprising two double-strength chapters of both raw recruits from across Ultramar and beyond, and a core of war-hardened veterans. While Vosotho had once blooded these neophyte warriors at the forefront of his campaigns, Guilliman assigned them first to defensive operations within Ultramar after a rigorous training regime. This regime favoured practical battle experience and more rigorous and lengthy cerebral conditioning and mimetic implantation than most other legions undertook. Suzerain Invictarus, the most renowned and powerful of the 13th Legion's elite sub-formations, were the Suzerain Invictarus, also known as the Invictarii. This veteran cadre served both as a Legion elite and as a pool of warriors distinguished not only by bravery or skill in combat, but also by their talent in governance, organization and administration. Their ranks formed the core outside the usual Legion structure devoted to the control and order of the Ultramarines domain, increasing as the Legion and Ultramar expanded. The Invictarii formed the retinues of the 5 tetrarchs of Ultramar, functioning as a military force for defense, arbiters of law, and an honor guard in battle. The size of these forces varied, with Tetrarch Amintus maintaining several thousand as peacekeepers around Ajax, while Tetrarch Lamiad had only 100 in his guard, given the Mechanicum warriors defending Conor. Members of the Invictarii also spread through the Legion's veteran units and various command substrata, gaining further battlefield experience and honing their skills. Fulmentorus Terminator Strike Squad, created by Robert Guilliman. After observing the Iron Warrior's Tyrant siege, Terminator squads, the Primarch saw value in the tactic and ordered the creation of similar units within his own legion. The Fulmentorus are equipped with Cataphractii pattern Terminator armor, enhanced with targeting systems for coordinated fire. Combined with heavy weapons like the Reaper autocannon or Cyclone missile launcher, these sensors make the Fulmentorus a formidable heavy assault unit, one that might have been adopted widely across the Legiones Astartes had the Horus Heresy not occurred. Locutarus Storm Squad. The Locutarus Storm Squads are elite units maintained in small numbers by most chapters within the Ultramarines Legion, deployed particularly in vanguard and strike formations. Each warrior is selected from the line assault squads for their exceptional skill, courage and ferocity. Unlike the savage or bloodthirsty assault units of other legions, the Locutarus are known for their iron discipline and precision in sword and pistol play. They are often held in reserve, unleashed at the perfect moment to tip the battle in favour of the Ultramarines. Each member wields an artificer-wrought power sword, a mark of honour and a lethal tool of war. Vigil Operatii. Though rarely spoken of, the Vigil Operatii was another agency of the 13th Legion operating within Ultramar. This organisation, dating back to Ultramar's founding, functioned as a shadow arm of the military government, silencing threats within the 500 worlds and overseeing the various defence militias of its standing human armies. Little is recorded of their internal organisation, save that their forces comprised augmented humans, those whose minor deficiencies barred them from joining the 13th Legion, but not from service. Reporting to the Invictarus, they went where the superhuman Legiones Astartes could not go covertly or easily, operating with an ironclad code of conduct similar to the operatives of certain other legions with more insidious methods. The Ultramarines Legion had access to the wealth and resources of Ultramar, enabling them to maintain extensive strategic reserves of munitions and material. Among these assets was a formidable fleet of warships, many constructed within the 500 worlds or on the forge worlds of Thramas for the heaviest classes. A key element to the Legion's operations was their vast number of armoured vehicles, with each chapter maintaining its own stocks to adapt to tactical and environmental needs. They all possessed large numbers of Rhino armoured carriers for rapid squad movement across open terrain, and many land raiders for spearhead assaults into enemy positions. These were supported by Predator and Sicaran battle tanks, as well as Whirlwind missile tanks and other mobile artillery for long-range bombardment. One chapter in particular, the fourth chapter, known increasingly as the Aurorans, was notable for its extensive use of armoured vehicles. They were especially adept at deploying super-heavy vehicles like the Fellblade, Falchion and Glaive, along with other lesser-known prototype classes. The Ultramarines' armoured forces included a wide range of vehicle classes, patterns and types, some of which were early patterns of war machines deployed in large numbers across the Legiones Astartes. Some vehicles were kept operational by constant field repairs and hadn't seen the Legion forge for decades. Conversely, newer vehicles like the Damocles Pattern armoured carrier, modified for command and control with sophisticated communications equipment, were just starting to be used. This platform, inspired by the Ultramarines, began entering service across the legions by the end of the Great Crusade, with the sons of Guilliman leading by example. Despite their large numbers, the Ultramarines' naval assets were more limited. Robuta Guilliman had forged a close alliance with the Imperialis Armada fleets of the Ultima Segmentum, relying on them when powerful capital ships or extensive orbital bombardments were needed. Guilliman preferred his Legion fleet optimized for close assault and invasion operations rather than for long-range starship battles. Consequently, the Legion operated fewer than 35 of the heaviest capital ships at any time, having lost several in battle, including the flagship during the disaster at the Osiris cluster. Most of their remaining heavy capital ships had served since the Legion's inception and were heavily refitted over time, with only a few newer models like the powerful Gloriana class assigned since Guilliman took command. The primary body of the Legion's fleet comprised mid-scaled cruisers, smaller battle barges of various classes, and a substantial number of lighter pattern strike cruisers, frigates, and fast patrol cutters, which could be produced by the orbital shipyards across Ultramar. This fleet structure allowed the Legion great flexibility and range in deploying its Space Marine chapters. However, in terms of combined overall tonnage and firepower, the Ultramarines' fleet ranked mid-tier among the Legions, considerably behind the Imperial Fists and the Death Guard in heavy capital units. Before the orders to gather on Calth for the Gazlak Crusade, the majority of the 13th Legion was dispersed across the southern and eastern sectors of the galaxy in various Crusade fleets. Guilliman recalled 20 full chapters to Calth, with 14 of them stopping at Saturn in the Sol system to resupply before proceeding. This resulted in nearly 200,000 Legiones Astartes, along with countless auxiliaries being deployed to Calth. The death toll during the Battle of Calth was devastating. Although precise numbers are unattainable, it is estimated that no more than 40,000 Ultramarines escaped Calth's system after the fighting, many of whom were wounded, with an unknown number trapped beneath the surface of the ravaged and radiation-filled world. The Ultramarines recorded their losses at 119,422 Legiones Astartes killed in action, and another 28,392 incapacitated due to battle injuries and trauma when Guilliman and the remains of the 13th Legion fleet departed Calth. Few chapters could muster even a quarter of their nominal strength post-campaign, and some were so severely decimated that they faced reorganization, losing their old designations within the 13th Legion's order of battle. Most of the injured were evacuated to the surviving Legion fleet and quickly returned to combat duties due to the crisis unfolding across Ultramar. Guilliman had to prioritize military assets over the stranded civilians of Calth during the brief evacuation effort. Nearly 40,000 Ultramarines, both wounded and combat-ready, were forced to stay on Calth, some as volunteers protecting the remaining civilians and others due to the harsh circumstances. Details about the Exertus Imperialis, the Imperial Army, are less precise, but it is likely that at least 500,000 troops perished during the battle, along with the entire fighting force of the Legio Praesagius. Regarding the Ultramarines chapters not recalled for the Gustlac Crusade, the 7th chapter was engaged in a costly campaign against a Macragge infestation on the eastern fringe and could not be spared. The 10th chapter was scattered across the northeastern limits of Imperial expansion, too far away to be recalled. The 24th and 25th chapters, part of the Evocati, and the 19th chapter were dispersed across key worlds of Ultramar, remaining as Guilliman led most of his legion to war, unaware of the impending storm, but initially spared from its devastation. The bulk of the Ultramarines' fleet, along with numerous bonded ships of the Imperialis Armada and hundreds of military and mechanicum transport vessels, was at Calth for the muster. Caught unprepared for the traitors' attack, they suffered greatly. Many capital and cruiser-class ships were turned into burning hulks, went missing, or were severely damaged and in need of repair. This situation left the Legion and Ultramar primarily dependent on smaller craft for defence and strategic transport, making military shipbuilding a priority for the remaining capable worlds. Guilliman sought to bolster his position by adding to his few remaining heavy warships, some of which had not been present at the muster and were spared the ambush, with additional ships appropriated from the Imperialis Armada when available and modified for Space Marine use. Where possible, capturing enemy warships through boarding actions was prioritized. The speed and efficiency with which this was done were phenomenal, significantly impacting the battles of the heresy to come. After the Horus heresy, the Space Marine legions were divided into smaller fighting units. Robert Guilliman established the organizational principles that every Space Marine chapter would follow. While some chapters later deviated from the exact structure outlined in Guilliman's Codex Astartes, most Astartes chapters remain faithful to its teachings. The Ultramarines adhere to the teachings of their Primarch and the Codex with religious dedication. They strictly follow the organizational format set during the second founding, only deviating from it when absolutely necessary, such as with the creation of the Tyrannic War Veterans. During the incursion of Hive Fleet Behemoth, the elite First Company was completely wiped out in a heroic last stand beneath the northern polar fortress of Macragge. This company comprised the chapter's finest warriors, equipped with precious and dwindling Terminator armor. Such losses of personnel and equipment are not easily replaced. Being located in the galactic east, which saw successive assaults from Tyrannid Hive fleets, the experiences that made veterans of their warriors inevitably came from fighting these vile Xenos. Under Chaplain Ortan Cassius's direction, a new elite unit, the Tyrannic War Veterans, emerged. These elite squads represented a significant departure for the Ultramarines, a chapter for whom such specialization was almost unheard of. Two factors led to their formation: the necessity of having a full-strength veteran company and the chapter's intense hatred for the Tyrannids. If the statues in the Hall of Heroes on Terra were to come to life, they would scarcely represent a greater or more noble gathering of exemplars than those leading the Ultramarines. The chapter boasts the Imperium's only known living Primarch, who also holds the rank of Lord Commander of the Imperium. The caliber of the individuals in the Ultramarines chapter command is breathtaking. Chapter Master and Lord of Macragge Manius Calga had ruled for more than 2 centuries, even before Robuta Guilliman's return, and with his Genesire's blessing, he continues to do so with greater wisdom and martial magnificence. Below Guilliman and Calgar stand an impressive array of Imperial heroes, the Honor Guard of the Ultramarines. Hand-picked from among the most veteran and deadly warriors of the chapter, each has a personal role of honor stretching back over dozens of significant and bloody conflicts. The axe-wielding champions of the Honor Guard and the shield-bearing defenders of the Victrix. Honor Guard stand ready to enforce their lord's commands and carry the vengeance of Ultramar into the hostile stars. Surrounding these storied heroes is a constellation of other august bodies and dedicated support personnel. The Armory, the Apothecarian, the Librarius, and the Reclusium all branch off from the chapter command, aiding in the overall management of the chapter's affairs. Legions of chapter serfs, acolytes, astropaths, lexicographers, cartodivinators, historiators, logisticators, and countless other ranks of mortal human aides handle the daily administration and coordination of the chapter's affairs. Among the people of Macragge and across wider Ultramar, even the humblest of these individuals is greatly revered, and the Ultramarines themselves acknowledge their labours with gratitude. The Ultramarines Chapter Armory is located deep within the sprawling immensity of the fortress of Hera on Macragge. Here, the chapter's weapons and war gear are maintained, its vehicles and artillery pieces tended to between combat engagements, and its dreadnoughts slumber away the solar decades until they are reawakened for battle. Under the banners of the Chapter Armory, all of the Ultramarines' heaviest military material and tools of war are gathered. The Armory is both a location and a martial organisation within the chapter, a self-contained fiefdom where the word of the chapter Tech Marines is law. It is a realm of clanging piston hammers, rumbling forge furnaces, sombre chants, crackling braziers, the whine and snap of precision servo tools, and the omnipresent sense of lapping powder, engine oil, and sanctified incense. Hulking servitors lumber through the ruddy light, hefting slabs of tank armour or gunship munitions weighing tons at a time. Tech Marines move to and fro from one repair cradle or arming bench to another, robes of crimson and blue draped over their power-armoured forms, their critical eyes always fixed on the work of chapter serfs and repair servitors. Here the chapter's battle tanks are restored to full fighting strength after even the most gruelling campaigns. The machine spirits of field guns, bolt rifles and aircraft are ministered to and readied for their next engagement. Magnificent masterworks of the armourer's craft are created here, with artificers sometimes labouring their entire lives to craft a single exceptional weapon for the Ultramarines' greatest heroes. It is from the Armory that Ultramarine strike force commanders requisition vehicles larger than armoured transports to join their warriors in battle. The Ultramarines possess many venerable vehicles, bearing deadly technology from bygone ages, as well as a prodigious cadre of dreadnought battle brothers, whose sarcophagi can be stirred to wakefulness when war beckons. Some of these warriors have existed for thousands of years, offering peerless wisdom in the tenets of the Codex Astartes and its battlefield applications. Remember the names of the honoured fallen. Recall their deeds and know that their sacrifice honours the chapter. No son of Gilliman could wish for a more glorious death. Orton Cassius, Ultramarines, Master of Sanctity. During the initial incursions of the Tyranid hive fleets, the Ultramarines were continually engaged with this extragalactic threat. The invasion of Hive Fleet Behemoth was stopped at the Battle of Macragge, but at great cost, wiping out a significant portion of the chapter. Veterans from these Tyranid conflicts often form elite units called Tyrannic War Veterans, also known as Tyranid Hunters. These units are specially trained to combat this specific Xenos menace effectively. Currently, 12 members of the Ultramarines' First Company are Tyrannic War Veterans. These veterans typically carry a bolter and an Astartes combat knife. Some are equipped with close assault weapons like a multi-melter, flamer, or plasma gun. Tyrannic War Veteran Sergeants carry chainswords and bolters, or bolters and grenades. The Honour Guard of the Ultramarines chapter consists of warriors who protect the revered chapter banner. To become an Honour Guard, a Marine must display extraordinary courage in combat. The Ultramarines Honour Guards wear highly ornate artificer armour and are each armed with an axe of Ultramar, powerful weapons forged by the Tech Marines in the chapter's forge, constructed with rare ores excavated beneath the world of Prandium. Among the Honour Guard are two special individuals, the chapter's Ancient, who bears the sacred banner of Macragge, and the chapter Champion, the mightiest member of the Honour Guard, armed with the Honour Blades, a matching set of master-crafted power swords, a broadsword and a poniard wielded with deadly skill. The Victrix Guard is an elite formation chosen by Robert Gilliman after his resurrection around 999. M41 to accompany him on the Terran Crusade. Handpicked by the Primarch to act as his bodyguards and diplomatic envoys, the Victrix Guard excels in both battle and statecraft. Veteran Marines with countless centuries of combat experience advance fearlessly into battle with their bolters thundering and heads held high. After the Terran Crusade, Guilliman deployed members of the Victrix Guard to serve with the Ultramarine leaders remaining on Macragge. Like other Astartes chapters, the Ultramarines maintain a librarium of potent psychers trained to master the power of the warp at the highest levels. Each chapter selects its librarians in its own way, either from seed worlds or from the ranks of gifted psychers brought to the Scholastica Psychana by the Black Ships. Most chapters train and test their chosen psychers following the ancient ways laid out in the Codex Astartes. Librarians of the Ultramarines are trained in this way, and with few minor variations have been taught to live by the word of the Codex. Ultramarines' librarians possess unique psychic abilities only used by the psychers of their chapter. Fury of the Ancient. The librarian summons forth a beast of ghostly flame and psychic energy that charges forward, moving up to the extent of the power's range before vanishing in a burst of energy. Glory of the Emperor. The librarian channels the light of the Emperor, bathing all those nearby in his glory, causing massive damage to creatures of the warp. Inspiring Word. The librarian calms the minds of nearby allies, dispelling their fear and doubt completely. Paragon. The librarian's authority shines forth in a blaze of psychic energy, filling nearby allies with strength and resolve to emulate his glory. War Cry. The librarian's terrifying cry demoralizes and stuns nearby foes, forcing them to cower before his might. Word of the Emperor. The librarian recites a sanctified prayer to the Emperor, speaking holy words that burn the minds of the unfaithful and cast out the spirits of the warp. The Ultramarines Librarius is renowned for its discipline and close adherence to the strict dictates of the Codex Astartes. Ultramarines librarians train their minds to a sharp focus, able to manipulate their enemy, read the premonitory echoes of their movements, or strike directly at their victims' psyches to devastating effect. These abilities are grouped together as the Indomitus discipline. Precognition. The librarian sees the trajectory of incoming attacks, allowing him to slip effortlessly around them, appearing untouchable to observers. Scryer's Gaze. The librarian divines the future by looking into the warp's twisted strands, predicting the enemy's plans and dispositions to devise new strategies and alter the course of an entire war zone. Telepathic Assault. The librarian gathers his mental might into a searing blade of psychic energy, unleashing an overwhelming attack on his enemy's mind, causing foes to scream and collapse as their brains burst asunder. Storm of the Emperor's Wrath. The librarian unleashes a tempest of psychic blasts, striking like lightning, burning flesh and overloading enemy war engines with a crackling roar. Psychic Shackles. The librarian trammels his foes' souls, crushing their will to fight and stalling their advance. Empiric Channeling. The librarian focuses his thoughts to channel warp energies into a fellow librarian, achieving harmonious psychic choristry that magnifies his fellow psycher's powers significantly. Like most Codex Astartes compliant chapters, the Ultramarines are divided into 10 companies of 100 Space Marines each. Each company is led by a captain of the Ultramarines, who, besides his company command, oversees a specific aspect of the chapter's logistics. Since the end of the First Tyrannic War, the elite Xenos-hunting Ultramarines known as Tyrannic War Veterans have been dispersed throughout every company in the chapter. This ensures that their experience and expertise in combating the Ultramarines' most hated alien foes are passed on to their less experienced battle brothers. An Ultramarine's company designation is indicated by the color of the trim on his power armor shoulder plates, as mandated by the Codex Astartes. The chart below shows the company commanders and order of battle for the Ultramarines chapter in 999th year of the 41st millennium, prior to the resurrection of Reboot Guilliman and the introduction of the Primaris Marines. Captain Invictus commanded the first company until his death at the Battle of Macragge, alongside most of his company. Severus Agemon originally commanded the second company until his promotion to command the first after the Battle of Macragge. Until the 745th year of the 41st millennium, Captain Ardius led the third company, but was severely injured by overwhelming Tau forces. Michael Fabian was confirmed as the temporary captain before the Battle of Macragge against the Tyrannids, and with his third company succeeded in the reconquest of the North Pole fortress. Until the 999th year of the 41st millennium, Captain Lucius Idaeus commanded the Fourth Company, but died in battle on Thracia. Uriel Ventris was confirmed as the successor captain shortly after, but was exiled from the Ultramarines for failing to adhere to the Codex Astartes. He successfully completed his death oath and returned to take up his command once more. The Ultramarines recruit new Astartes from the populations of all the worlds comprising the realm of Ultramar in the galaxy's eastern fringe. The nobility of Ultramar considers having a son chosen to join the chapter to be an unparalleled honour. Adolescent aspirants wishing to join the Ultramarines are generally expected to pass one of two types of trials to be chosen as neophytes. First, the Ultramarines may require aspirants to pass an exposure trial within one of the more challenging environments within Ultramar. Few worlds of the Imperium are entirely free from adversity, with most of the Emperor's subjects living on planets that are dangerous in some manner. Long-settled planets may be polluted, heavily irradiated, or host to hostile life forms. Other environments range from sub-zero ice wastes, impenetrable swamps and arid deserts to exotic deathworld jungles, methane sumps and hydrocarbon oceans. In an exposure trial, the aspirant must survive in such an environment for a set period. If he's a native of such a place, he will have some knowledge of survival but must rely only on basic survival equipment. For example, an aspirant from a deathworld jungle would face the terrors of the wild alone, without the usual constant cooperation of his community. Some trials test the aspirant's fortitude by having him travel across vast, inhospitable terrains. One variation of the exposure trial involves transplanting the aspirant into an entirely unfamiliar environment, such as placing a feral world savage in a hive city. Many exposure trials are impossible to complete, requiring the aspirant to stay alive as long as possible. Those who face the impossible without faltering and survive long past the point they should have perished are recovered by the chapter's apothecaries and judged worthy of becoming an Astartes neophyte. The Ultramarines extensively use the exposure trial. Some of the warrior elite of Ultramar cast newborn infants into the wilderness to test their resilience. The second, less common trial for Ultramarines aspirants is the challenge trial. This trial requires the aspirant to fight a duel or compete against a full Astartes in some other manner. The aspirant is not expected to win, but is judged on the degree of his failure. Occasionally, an aspirant does manage to best an Astartes, and often goes on to become a legendary hero of the chapter. Many challenge trials involve martial skill, with the aspirant fighting an armed duel against a battle brother, usually with the aspirant armed and the Astartes unarmed. Most duels end in the aspirant's death, as even an unarmed Astartes is a giant compared to the adolescent challenger. Other challenge trials test strength, stamina, speed, skill or mental fortitude. These trials might involve lifting heavy loads or imbibing toxic substances and can often be deadly. An aspirant who fails the trial but performs to the chapter's satisfaction is rescued by the apothecaries and deemed worthy of becoming a neophyte. Ironically, many Ultramarines have been drawn from Ultramar's powerful nobility. While this position adds to his family's status, one of the first lessons a new neophyte learns is that in the Ultramarines, family birth and status are meaningless. Every battle brother is equal in the eyes of the Emperor and Reboot Guilliman, with the only aristocracy being that forged by sacrifice and blood, in service to mankind and one's fellow Astartes. The Ultramarines maintain a tradition of noble names that date back to when Conor first adopted the young Reboot Guilliman. These names are influenced by the shared culture of the many worlds of Ultramar and echo throughout the Imperium, synonymous with honour and glory. Ultramaran names closely resemble those of the ancient Romans of Old Earth. Examples include Marius Sicarus, Trajan Quintus, Romulus Maximus, Tiberius Optimar, and Marcus Tellurian. The Ultramarines chapter is well represented in the ranks of the Death Watch, the chamber militant of the Inquisition's Ordo Xenos. Ultramarines have been undertaking the Long Watch since the earliest days of the Vigil in the Jericho Reach, and several archives claim that the first battle brother to take the apocryphal oath at Orphite IV was from this chapter. Given their tactical acumen and comprehensive knowledge of warfare, it is unsurprising that a significant proportion of the Death Watch's leaders in the Jericho Reach are seconded from the Ultramarines. Every Ultramarine is deeply versed in the Codex Astartes and knowledgeable in almost all methods of warfare ever conceived. This extensive knowledge, combined with the inheritance of Robuta Guilliman himself, makes them exemplary leaders. Superiority of force is key, and the key to superiority is above all structure. With structure comes order, with order the ability to carry out purpose, and only through clear purpose can victory be perceived. Principia Bellicosa. Just as Guilliman united the Imperium and the Adeptus Astartes after the Horus heresy, forging the military might of the greatest stellar empire the galaxy has ever seen into a single mighty war machine, so do the Ultramarines in the Death Watch unite the diverse warriors under their command. Such officers ensure that taciturn dark angels work alongside hot-headed space wolves, that noble blood angels stand side by side with morbid raven guard. These leaders must address each warrior's legitimate concerns and ensure the team operates as a seamless whole. They must know every nuance of their warrior's abilities and weaknesses, utilizing them as the living weapons they were created to be. It is only through the wisdom of the Codex Astartes and the example of its author that such coordination is possible. During the Great Crusade and Horus heresy eras, one practical application of the Ultramarines Legion's vast storehouse of theoretical battle scenarios, plans and tactical formulae known as the Logos Lectora was a battlefield formation that maximized the effectiveness of interlocking Legion units. Relying on sophisticated command and control protocols, faultless obedience and rigid discipline, the Logos Lectora's disadvantage was its somewhat inflexible unit formation and deployment. By the 41st millennium, the Ultramarines chapter relies on the holy dictates of the Codex Astartes to address any tactical situation. This tome contains the wisdom of thousands of Imperial warriors who have contributed to it and details everything from proper unit markings to launching full-scale planetary assaults. The Ultramarines do not specialize in any particular form of combat, proving instead to be ultimate generalists, proficient in every aspect of warfare, but not the masters of any. For instance, the Aurora chapter excels in armored warfare. The Raven Guard are unmatched in guerrilla, infiltration, and hit-and-run tactics, and the Imperial Fists are recognized masters of siege warfare. Despite this, the Ultramarines' generalist combat skills provide a potent defense against any of these chapters, making them the standard to which all other Astartes chapters are compared, for better or worse. The Ultramarines' gene seed is revered for its exceptional stability, showing no significant physical mutations beyond the norm and ensuring full functionality of implanted organs with only a 10% chance of mutation. Psychologically, initiates exhibit increased aggression as expected, but also a strong tendency towards cohesion, hierarchy, and a relentless dedication to achieving assigned goals. This contrasts with the more individualistic and fractious tendencies seen in chapters like the White Scars or Space Wolves. The Ultramarines are thorough, analytical, and detail-oriented in all their duties, whether in battle or study. They're slow to anger and rarely make rash decisions. By adhering strictly to the Codex Astartes, the Ultramarines can handle any situation with well-practiced battle drills and established doctrines. In interactions with battle brothers from other chapters, Ultramarines often play the role of facilitators and peacemakers. While some chapters have members with extreme temperaments, the Ultramarines' balanced approach allows them to broker agreements between diverse viewpoints. When faced with a problem, an Ultramarine is likely to consult the vast tracts of the Codex Astartes that he has memorized. The saga of the Ultramarines Legion and its successor chapter draws heavily from ancient Greek, particularly Spartan, and Roman societies, especially in terms of military organization. They are the premier Space Marines army, serving as the standard for all Codex-compliant chapters in the Imperium and needing no tactical supplements beyond the Codex Astartes. The Ultramarines' dominion over the star systems of Ultramar grants them unparalleled contact with Imperial citizenry. This has fostered a unique level of affinity for the common citizenry among an Astartes chapter, comparable only to the Salamanders. The Ultramarines see themselves as protectors of the innocent and not merely the Imperium's finest warriors. This perspective marks the Ultramarines as one of the noblest Space Marine chapters, fighting not just for honor and glory, but to protect the lives of their people. Unlike most Imperial organizations, they are willing to work with aliens like the Eldari and even hold some respect for the Tau Empire. Unlike other Imperial forces, the Ultramarines do not break their deals with alien allies even after victory is achieved. The Ultramarines are synonymous with courage and honor, and their warriors are highly esteemed throughout the Imperium. Unlike many other chapters, which control a single planet or fortress monastery, the Ultramarines directly govern 8 star systems from their homeworld of Macragge, within the stellar realm known as Ultramar. From these worlds, the Ultramarines recruit new members, administer imperial justice, and rule Ultramar with discipline and fairness. The Ultramarines' fortress monastery, known as the Fortress of Hera, is located in the highest peaks of Macragge. Here, the best and bravest children selected from the many training academies throughout Ultramar begin their training as Space Marine aspirants, destined to become the most feared warriors of the Imperium, the Adeptus Astartes. Roboute Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, established the foundations of the Imperium's fighting forces 10,000 years ago in a tome known as the Codex Astartes. This revered work embodies all of Guilliman's military genius and provides precise guidelines for virtually every aspect of war, from marching conduct to planetary assault execution. The Codex Astartes' most significant directive was the division of the first founding Space Marine legions into smaller chapters. No longer would one man control a force as powerful as an entire legion. Each chapter would consist of 10 companies, roughly 1,000 warriors in total. The Ultramarines have adhered strictly to Guilliman's teachings since then, following the Codex Astartes with unwavering devotion. Their organization and combat doctrines remain the same as they were 10,000 years ago. These principles have been passed down to the Imperial citizens of Ultramar, making it an ideal model of Imperial human utopia amidst a galaxy defined by war. As inheritors of Roboute Guilliman's military genius and battle ferocity, the Ultramarines have fought according to the Codex Astartes for 10 millennia. They do not interpret their Primarch's sacred words loosely, as deviation from the Codex is considered blasphemy. For the Ultramarines, the Codex is a divine work of wisdom, sanctified by the Emperor himself, and they see no reason to deviate from its teachings. The lifelong lessons of discipline and self-reliance instilled in the people of Ultramar give them the strength to hold true to teachings that are over 10,000 years old. More Space Marine chapters of the Imperium owe their fealty and genetic heritage to the Primarch of the Ultramarines than any of the other Primarchs. Some are venerable orders with a history dating back to the dawn of the Imperium, whilst others are more recent additions to the chapters of the Adeptus Astartes. The Sons of Guilliman account for over 2/3 of all Space Marine chapters extant at the close of the 41st millennium. The Scions of Guilliman, those chapters directly descended from the Ultramarines and their second founding primogenitors, maintain their own traditions, often inspired or influenced by their world of origin. This is as it should be, for the Codex Astartes prescribes that each chapter should establish its own name, badge, and heraldry. Nonetheless, these chapters honour Roboute Guilliman as a Primarch and their liege. Should Guilliman call, he would find these chapters ever willing to fight at his side. They view the Ultramarines as exemplars and Ultramar as a model civilization. This is not to say that over the millennia there have not been misunderstandings or schisms between the Ultramarines and their many successors, but such occurrences are mercifully rare. The primogenitors are those chapters created when the original Ultramarines Legion was divided during the second founding. Sometimes referred to as the Firstborn, These chapters each maintain their own histories and traditions, but they all honor Robert Guilliman as their primarch and adhere strictly to the procedures and tactical treatises he laid down in the Codex Astartes. There are conflicting records as to exactly how many primogenitor chapters were created, but the oldest copy of the Codex Astartes lists 12. It is believed that there were a further 11 or more primogenitors, but if they existed, their names have been lost to the passing of time, and no Space Marine chapter surviving in the late 41st millennium claims the honor.